I thought we would. Cool. There he is. I thought we would talk about kind of two things. Looking back, I really wanted to just talk about the Mint weekend and kind of things that we learned there about what went well and what didn't, and then we can jump into the roadmap and what's coming in the future, and then we can kick it over to
Nice.
Q&A. Xander, do you want to
Sounds
walk
great.
us through the weekend and like, yeah, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we learn that we should share with other projects, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, first of all, what's up, everyone? Nice to be back. I was out for a couple weeks doing like a joint time away slash ETH Paris. So nice to be back at the terminal, sleeping in my own bed. Um, but yeah, so the Mint. So what went well? What didn't go well? I think the biggest pain that we had was actually with our allow list, right? So we had this issue where we flipped on the Mint and everyone just started freaking out because they were supposed to be able to mint, but they couldn't mint because we had this silly little lower casing issue. Um, in hindsight, we maybe shouldn't. Basically, the thing we did was built our own allow list handling on Tableland,
Well, yeah,
and
so it was actually really cool what we did. We just made a mistake
yeah,
on making the address comparison that we just had to patch a fix real quick. But yeah, talk people through
yeah,
why that allow list was actually super cool. If we caught that single bug, it would have been amazingly cool, but it was still super cool.
yeah, yeah. Well, so typically there's a couple different ways to do allow lists, and you know, we as a team haven't done tons of NFT drops, so we kind of bootstrapped ourselves in these little kind of quirky things that you have to figure out. So the style that we went with is this Merkle tree style, where basically you need to submit a Merkle proof, and I don't know. I'm not going to dive into what Merkle trees are and what the proof is and everything like that. But just suffice to say that given a set of Ethereum addresses and allow list spots, you generate this tree. Think of it as just like an entry in a list, basically. So the contract needs to know that you have an allowance on that list, and it needs to know exactly what that list is without storing the whole thing in the contract, because that would be expensive. So there's a really clever way to do that with Merkle trees. Um, and typically when people do that, they set up a backend server to serve to them the Merkle tree root, or just the entire all the data that makes up that tree, because you need to be able to pull out the individual entries in order to create the proof and all that stuff. But with Tableland, you can just swap out that backend. So what we did is we generated a couple different tables, or one giant table, actually, that has a few different columns for like the different phases of the mint, what your allowances are for each different phase, and how many free mints you have and how many paid mints you have. There's a couple folks we worked with, like Oddfellows, for example. They got a couple free mints, so we need to handle that as well. So the easiest way to do that, I mean, it was just really intuitive. It was like a no-brainer, you know. It's like, well, we have Tableland, like, let's just use that. So basically, it means that you can do that allow list handling without any backend, which is pretty cool.
What I think is notable there is like a lot of projects have their front end for minting, and you have to go through that front end because that front end is where the API calls are made. But technically, with our mint, people could have done it through, say, Etherscan if they had known in advance how to query that table that was on Tableland. So there was no
Yeah,
backend. Of course, we didn't create the docs for doing that. It would have been a lot to explain to people. But in the future, you could imagine that, because then you have like composable mints. Like people could create different mint interfaces and things like that. Which, when you start broadening up what an NFT really is, like you think that okay, that actually is really interesting when we move beyond artwork and things like that, where maybe there's millions of mints, you know? So yeah, very
yeah,
cool. So a little
Yeah.
bug there. What about the timeline of the different phases? I feel like we made an epic, great, cool first move, and then maybe stumbled on the second move with some ideas of how other projects could do that.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I'm sure everyone has opinions about this, but we definitely got some pushback around just kind of having an over allocated wait list. And essentially, I just copied that from what Premint recommends and what Premint did with their collector pass. Um, and theirs was way more over allocated than ours. You know, they had like 50,000 signups or something. But what that leads to is obviously a gas war. I think when the we flipped on the whitelist sale, and I thought, I mean, we all kind of thought for a few seconds that something was broken on the web page. I mean, it kind of was because of the the Tableland side became a little slow because there were so many people reading from the Allowlist table. But yeah, basically it sold out in like a couple of minutes or something, which is a bummer for.
But so actually, interesting side effect of the slow query to Tableland was even though people were clobbering to get in, I don't think we ever generated a true gas war because everybody was too
Yeah,
bogged down. So pretty like maybe there's actually a technical approach there to do something like that. I'm not sure. But you skipped over the
yeah. I mean,
piece
because
I was. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, our validator does do rate limiting, so per IP address. So it may have been doing some of that, but who's to say if someone? I mean, someone could have figured out how to make the proofs, and then they were just using a bot. So, but I don't know if that happened or not.
Yeah.
I doubt that was the bulk of the traffic. But yeah, hard to know.
Yeah. I feel like that either we needed to have a different allow list at that point that was much smaller, like different phases of allow list, or just go to auction. But
Yeah,
you skipped over the cool thing, which was the extended allow list period, which I thought was in hindsight
oh,
one of the
yeah,
best features of what we did, and I think other projects should totally adopt that.
yeah, yeah. It does kind of copied from Moonbirds because they had like a huge window where you could go and mint, and it felt just chill. You know, I've
Yeah.
been in a situation where you have a 12-hour window and it's kind of panicky. It's like trying to line up the time zone and everything like that. So yeah, I think we did like, was it 2 days, 3 days? No, it was
Yeah,
4 days.
we did it over the weekend, Thursday night or Thursday midday to Monday midnight. Um,
Yeah,
3.5
yeah,
days, I guess. Yeah, I think the cool thing there was that we genuinely wanted everybody on the allow list to mint. So anybody who didn't mint, it was purely just they didn't check their spam box or something like that. But like everybody had time, hopefully, to dig up their wallet and get into that mint. Um,
yeah,
I do think we had some bots in the allow list, it seemed. So there's some
yeah.
improvements that should be made there. That was a little out of our hands, but yeah, I think some ideas there would be maybe to have much more rigorous Discord or Twitter filters, things like that. But all in all, I think it was okay.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we did use like, because we use Premint for the allow lists, and they have this bot removal thing, but I don't know. It's a black box. I'm not sure what they actually do there.
Yeah,
And it's a notoriously hard thing to solve for. It's so easy to create Twitter accounts and then tie that to different addresses, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so that's from the past mint. Maybe I think what a lot of people are really excited about is now we've mentioned both on the Rigs webpage and our blog post.